Who controls the global economy? Most people think they know the answer. Governments, billionaires, banks. But the real answer is far more complicated. Because the global economy is not controlled by one person, or even one country. It is controlled by systems, invisible systems. Systems most people never see, but interact with every single day. This is what nobody is talking about, because while the world focuses on politics, elections, and headlines, the real power operates underneath all of it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand what actually controls the global economy, how power really works, and why some systems matter more than governments themselves. But first, we need to destroy one major illusion: the idea that governments fully control the economy. Because they don't. This is where everything changes. Governments influence economies. They regulate. They tax. They spend. But they do not fully control the system. Because modern economies are deeply interconnected. Trade, finance, energy, technology, supply chains, currencies, all connected globally. This means power becomes decentralized. And once systems become global, no single country fully controls them anymore. This is where the real story begins. Let's start with one of the most powerful systems on Earth: the financial system. Every day, trillions of dollars move through global financial networks. Banks lend money. Investors move capital. Governments issue debt. Markets react instantly. This system influences interest rates, inflation, asset prices, currencies, economic growth. This is where it gets dangerous, because modern economies run on debt. Debt fuels growth. Debt funds governments. Debt powers expansion. And whoever controls credit controls economic momentum. This is why central banks matter so much. Central banks influence interest rates, money supply, liquidity, financial stability. When central banks raise rates, borrowing slows, spending slows, growth slows. When they lower rates, the opposite happens. This is why markets react so aggressively to central bank decisions, because money itself shapes the economy. But even central banks do not fully control the system. This is what most people miss. The global economy is also controlled by trade networks. Countries depend on each other. China manufactures. The Middle East exports energy. The US consumes. Taiwan produces chips. Brazil exports food. This creates interdependence. And interdependence creates vulnerability. This is where chokepoints become powerful. A single disruption can ripple across the world. A blocked canal, an oil shock, a semiconductor shortage. This is how global systems behave. Not isolated, connected. Now think about this. If trade routes matter, who controls them? This is where geopolitics enters the picture. Because military power still shapes economic power. Naval routes, shipping lanes, strategic alliances, all influence global trade. This is why the Strait of Hormuz matters, why the Suez Canal matters, why Taiwan matters. This is where economics and power merge. Now, let's go deeper. Because another system controls the world economy. Energy. Modern civilization runs on energy. Oil, gas, electricity. Without energy, nothing moves. Factories stop. Transport slows. Supply chains freeze. This is why energy prices influence inflation worldwide. When oil prices rise sharply, food prices often rise too. Transport becomes more expensive. Manufacturing costs increase. Consumer prices climb. This is how one system spreads through another. Now, here's where it gets even more important. The global economy also depends on the US dollar. The dollar dominates trade, energy markets, debt markets, global reserves. This gives the US enormous influence, because if the world runs on dollars, the US sits at the center of the financial system. This is why sanctions matter. This is why countries fear being cut off from dollar systems. But now, countries are trying to reduce dependence. China promotes the yuan. Some countries trade outside the dollar system. Alternative financial networks are emerging. This is where the future becomes uncertain, because the global system is shifting. Now let's talk about something even bigger: technology. Technology increasingly controls economies. AI systems, semiconductors, cloud infrastructure, digital payments, cybersecurity. This is where the next economic battle is happening, because whoever controls technology controls productivity, efficiency, data, power. This is why semiconductor shortages became global crises. One disruption in Taiwan affected industries worldwide. Cars slowed production. Electronics became scarce. Supply chains broke down. This is how fragile the system really is. Now here's the twist. No single institution controls all these systems. Instead, power is distributed across networks. Central banks influence finance. Energy producers influence inflation. Trade routes influence supply chains. Technology firms influence productivity. Governments influence policy. Markets influence behavior. This is why the global economy feels so unpredictable, because multiple systems interact at the same time. This is where everything connects: finance, trade, energy, technology, geopolitics, all layered together. Now imagine what happens during a crisis: oil shock, banking stress, supply chain disruption, currency volatility, all interacting simultaneously. This is why crises spread globally, because the system itself is interconnected. This is also why fear spreads quickly. Markets react emotionally. Investors panic. Consumers change behavior. Governments intervene. And the system becomes unstable. This is what happened during financial crises, during pandemics, during supply chain disruptions. This is how systems behave under stress. Now ask yourself this: if no single person controls the system, then what really matters? The answer is resilience. How resilient are these systems? How diversified are supply chains? How stable are currencies? How secure are trade routes? Because the future global economy will depend on resilience, not just growth. This is where the world may be heading: more fragmentation, more geopolitical competition, more supply chain diversification, more economic blocks. And this changes how power works globally. Because in the future, the countries and systems that adapt fastest may become the most powerful. If you want to understand how chokepoints shape this system, watch my video on global chokepoints next. If you want to understand the hidden struggle behind global power, watch the hidden economic war between the US and China, because everything in the global economy is connected. Subscribe to Atlas Economics, because those who understand the system will always stay ahead.